So yeah, the overall theme, holding to nothing, whatever. And the little sub-theme that I chose in relation to that, sense and sensitivity. Started off with sense and sensibility and thought that was a little bit too much, so changed it to sense and to sensitivity. So clearly the one of the opposite ways we can frame sense and sensitivity and holding to nothing whatever is through the opposite of holding to nothing whatever, which is in a way holding to everything, a sense of clinging or craving, which is the natural tendency of the mind. So perhaps I'll just take a little step back, frame what we're going to do. So I'm going to introduce, maybe for about 10-15 minutes, around that theme of holding to nothing, holding to everything, and how that, looking at our sense experience, where that fits in. And then we'll do a number of meditative exercises, say something in between some of them, not all of them, mainly talking about your experience. So it's really going to be quite simple and quite experiential. But if there are things that you don't particularly, if you think I don't quite get that, then yeah, perhaps I'll leave some spaces where you can ask a question. So holding to everything, that natural tendency of the mind to cling. The whole work of the spiritual life, we can frame it within that tendency to cling, and it's the other side of clinging, of that aversive relationship, that rejecting, clinging and rejecting to whatever's happening. And that first level, I'm sure this is familiar to you, that first level of clinging, of craving, is to do with the things, what we perceive to be as the things around us, the things in our environment, the objects of the senses. So the objects, the things that we can see, that we can touch, we can hold, that we can smell and taste, and the other one that I've missed out. So all those things through the senses, but that includes things through the less tangible things, through we hold on to power, we hold on to ideas, we try and hold on to wealth. So these are all things that different ways, if you like, in which we hold on. And often this holding on, this clinging goes unnoticed. It's as I said, it's so sort of intrinsic to the way that we operate in the world that we often don't notice until we can't have what we want, or we get what we don't want. So we don't notice it until it hurts, until it starts to hurt. Yeah, so dukkha is it doesn't really feel like it often, but dukkha is our friend in this case. It can help us see that clinging is happening, that we're holding on to something or pushing something away. So there's a little quote I'm going to read, which I really like, from Byron Katie, who, as far as I know, isn't a Buddhist, but actually I really like the directness with which she says things, and the directness of her seeing, actually her clear seeing, her wisdom. So I've just said we attach to all these things, and many of them are sense objects. What she says is that we don't attach to things or to people, but to uninvestigated concepts that we believe to be true in the moment. So that's quite subtle. That's taking a step back, and that's what I want to do in this workshop really is to keep taking that step back. So I'll say that again. We don't attach to things or to people, but to uninvestigated concepts we believe to be true in the moment. So we attach to an idea about something that we haven't really looked at. It's gone unnoticed and uninvestigated. And how we're looking to investigate it is to bring our attention back to an earlier part of the perceptual process. Usually, I was trying to think of a good metaphor for this, but usually I think we're sort of at the end of a process. Our attention is at the end of the process. It's with the sense object. It's with the thing that we like or we don't like. It's with the lovely sunset. It's with the sweet tasting thing. It's fully taking up the person that we're with, or taking them in. So we're at the end of that process. And what it can be really helpful to do is to come back a little bit. I've got this very imperfect metaphor, which I may refine during today. But it's a bit like that if you were to fish, which of course none of us would, but if you were someone who was fishing, and if you like, the sense objects are like the fish that you've landed. So that happens every now and again. You might get something. You might get something that you think is really not worth your attention, or you might sort of land a whopper. Something that you really like, you really want. So our attention is often on what we're catching, developing the metaphor as I speak. So on what we catch. But there are other things in the picture. There's the fishing rod. Might be a little net. It might be one of those long ones, casty ones, or it might be some other sort of fishing net that I have no idea about. But what we could say the fishing rod represents is being more with the sense itself rather than the object. We're with the sense experience. So already that's a step back. And one of the senses is the mind sense. So that's where, when Byron Katie's talking about uninvestigated experiences, uninvestigated concepts or ideas, opinions. There's something that perhaps even a little bit further back, they're part of the same 6 sense objects, but they're not quite the same as the 5 physical senses, because the mind says it has the ability to know, to be aware, to have some sort of recognition of what's happening. And I'm using mind in a very broad way here. I'm not equating it with the head, not equating it with the thinking mind, but that which can know, that which knows. And so that in itself is very broad. So maybe even that level of knowing is the whoever it is sitting on the bank, holding on to the fishing rod. We'll see if that goes any further. During, you may have some contributions to make. So we investigate in Byron Katie's terms by bringing the attention to see a bit more of the picture, rather than being so focused on the fish in the water, the fish at the end of the line. So that's one strand of holding to nothing, whatever. Realized I've got no idea what the time is. Okay. So something else I want to flag up in relation to this So many of you will know that I have spent some time in Burma with a Burmese teacher there. And his approach is very much about just really bringing a very light attention to the objects, the sense objects of experience. And so I was doing this one day, and what I got a sense of was how much, what a pull there is to involvement with sense objects. And we'll explore this pull towards, sometimes away, but in some sort of moving closer to sense objects. And what I realized in this one particular meditation, I said you have to feel and you see that addiction to the senses, to sense objects. And then you naturally want to rest with awareness. And from awareness, from the position of awareness, if you like, from the position of being on the bank with this broader view, you see that addiction that you take to be normal, proper life. I hope that makes some sort of sense. Addiction is a strong word, but that was the feeling that I had, this addiction or compulsive relationship to sense objects. The mind is always seeking them out, is always trying to move towards them. And we take this to be normal, proper life. We take this to be us going about our daily business. And clearly, as practitioners, the more we know, the less we buy into that particular framework, at least on a certain level. But within our experience, we're often still pulled quite strongly to the end of the story rather than earlier in the process. And that's largely this addiction to the senses, that there's this deep bias in the mind towards what's pleasant, towards seeking out what's going to increase the feeling of ease and comfort on any level. And often it's not a very deep level. Often it's the level of chocolate or pizza or whatever it is, but it's something that's it takes some training. It takes some training to, if you like, to equate that sense of ease with our practice. This is where I find the most satisfaction. This is what the mind wants to move towards, naturally move towards, a sense of a greater satisfaction rather than the more habitual sense pleasures. So holding to nothing, whatever, holding to everything, I think it brings a sense of, well, how do you let go? How do you let go? And practice that I'm most familiar with rather than it's necessarily thinking of letting go, perhaps thinking a bit more of letting be. If we see clearly what's happening by being able to step back, see a bigger picture, perhaps see how the dots are joined in terms of our sense, the processes around our senses, around the mind sense, then there can be a natural letting go. There's a natural when there's a recognition, I wouldn't even say necessarily letting go or letting be, but there's a clearer seeing, and that can change the perspective, that can change how we see or what is seen. So we'll explore this in a few different ways. fairly implicit ways, I think. I'm not necessarily going to try and make too much explicit, but I hope it'll be clear enough. So yeah, different ways in which we hold on, and perhaps by seeing that holding on more clearly, as I say, it changes the orientation of the mind. Yeah, naturally things are experienced a little bit differently. So maybe just to say something, this is not saying in any way, of course, that the objects of sense experience are unhelpful or are bad. It's just that we overly weight them. We tend to give them a lot of importance, and if the focus is there, then it's not really able to be seen very broadly what else is happening. So I use this image quite often, but it's a bit like, it's like having trying to do a jigsaw, and you've got a few bits in there. But by having a breadth rather than a narrow focus, by having this breadth of focus, not by trying to fill in the jigsaw, we can naturally see a bit more where things go. We can see a broader picture. So just in terms of sensitivity, so sense and so senses, that's there. But the sensitivity, I think in the Tibetan tradition, sometimes they talk about sensitivity in relation to the mind, one of the qualities of the mind. And so I'm using it broadly in that sense. But also that to be aware, to be able to see a bigger picture, it takes a mind that is not charging about. It's not trying to force things to happen. It's really quite relaxed and quite open. It's simply sensitive to what is already happening. It's not focused on trying to make something else happen, something deeper or better or whatever. It's simply recognizing what's already there, and that may be completely ordinary. But that quality of sensitivity in the mind again can affect what's seen. How we want to stop talking there, and we will sit, but I just will want to flag up just for the moment, are there any brief questions in relation to what I've been saying? Quite happy if there aren't, but all pretty clear, hopefully. Okay, well, let's sit. Let's if you find a posture that's comfortable, maybe a meditation posture, it might not be, just some where you feel quite relaxed. So each time we sit, it'll be for about 15 minutes or so, so not very long. And yeah, just sit in a very natural way, just comfortable, but with some degree of awakeness, alertness. And don't feel you have to have your eyes closed either. Just you might not want to be looking at the screen if your eyes are open, but yeah, feel free to look away at any time, actually. So I'll lead through. One of the things to just drop in at the beginning, this quality of sensitivity in the mind, this sense of knowing. It's very sensitive to how much effort we use. So really looking to use as little effort as possible and still be present. That's the criteria of effort. And if your fingers are touching at the moment, or if whatever your hands are touching, it might be touching each other, or it might be fabric or blanket. But just notice just how much effort it takes to just know those sensations, some of the sensations of the hands touching. So I'm not talking about knowing them continuously, but through being present. You just know as much as you know. And you might come back to that during the meditation, this one or the other ones, and just reconnect with that quality of energy. It's very light. Almost no effort to simply know those sensations as they happen. But overall, we're not looking to put the attention on any particular place. Our sphere for practice in this particular exercise will be the body, the breadth of sensation. So in the next few minutes, we're just looking to relax into a sense of stability, embodiment, relaxing into your posture. And while holding an intention to be aware, being this sense of embodiment in physical sensations, also be aware that settling happens in its own time and in its own way. Any places in the body where there's holding. Holding on. Perhaps the ankles or the thighs, the big muscles in the thighs. The hips. Belly, shoulders. Any holding within the breath. Not looking to change any of these things, but to notice them with a breadth of awareness, spacious, open, kindly awareness. Perhaps letting go happens through letting be, through the quality of awareness, and perhaps not. Not holding to an idea of what should be happening. Being willing to be present with what's actually happening. Perhaps there's a sense in different moments, different sensations of holding on and holding to nothing. Just in the next minute or so, perhaps just taking a pause. What did you notice? Where was your interest in what was happening? Did you feel present at times, and how did that feel? Not so much looking for definite answers, but just dropping in the questions too. Yeah, to stimulate that interest and not sort of in a way giving away what, because the meditation's ended, because the sitting period's ended. Yeah, what were the moments of value that would be rewarded through just giving a bit more attention? So we're going to go straight into another, maybe slightly shorter period of sitting with another way in. And then I'm going to invite well, probably not all of you, but anyone who would like to speak, to just say something about your experience afterwards. So just connecting with that experience of being relaxed and at home in the body, inhabiting broad sense of being alive, being present to life. And again, having your eyes open or closed, and looking to pay particular attention to any sounds around you, sounds further away. Perhaps sounds within you. Where, if you like, the sense object, a child's voice, a stomach gurgling. So those are the sense objects. But there's also that broader, the process of hearing. The hearing sense. And we can explore that process a little bit. Let's see if you can feel into times when it feels like listening is going on. There's something a little bit more active than simply hearing, simply receiving sounds, sound impressions that come to us. So we use both in our lives, hearing and listening. Listening is often more focused, takes a bit more energy. And it's not always necessary. So recognize listening, perhaps leaning into or reaching out to sense objects, naming them, imagining them. And rather than give quite so much energy to that process, settling back, resting back into simply hearing, letting sound impressions come to you. Relaxing into knowing of sounds, at times the knowing of silence. Not trying to pin anything down, but receiving the sound just as it is. And sometimes from that relaxed, settle back awareness, we can notice the reaching out to sense objects more clearly. Any sense of strain, wanting to know. There can often be a sort of clinging, a sort of holding on in that reaching out. Sometimes in the reaching, there can be a sense of anticipating what's coming next. A sense of waiting, perhaps for a sound that's repeating. The mind likes to know what's happening. feels a bit more secure when it can anticipate what's coming. And perhaps feeling the quality of the mind that is knowing all of this. Not knowing it so much in a heavily conceptual way. Registering, open to what's happening. And perhaps feeling into the qualities of receptivity and sensitivity in the knowing. Just receiving the sound of the bell. And again, taking that pause. What did you notice? No right or wrong. Where was the sense, perhaps feeling into the sense of interest? Experience of presence, whatever you were present to. And if anyone would like to, just for a minute or so, just say something about, in a way, not in any sense of summing up your experience or evaluating it, but a sense of just describing, perhaps describing, maybe just a few moments of what was happening for you in the practice. So if you like, we're staying with the fishing rod bit and the person on the bank. We're not looking so much to describe the objects of experience, but more the process of that we were with. So I think you can unmute yourselves if you'd like to. And we did this with about 120 people on a retreat a couple of weeks ago, and it wasn't a bun fight. So I think we can manage it with 20 of us today. So just sort of edge your way in if there's something you'd like to say.
I think
it'd be lovely to hear from I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 people if we've got time.
I find sound as an anchor,
Hello?
an easier way to relax into it, and it becomes much more expansive because I'm hearing the inner sounds more, and what I observed was the anticipation. So I was setting myself up to expect something or not expect something, which would then give me a different experience directly in the body.
Great. So yeah. So you see a bit more of the picture with that expansiveness. Yeah. But really good to see those different elements, isn't it? That anticipation. Did you have the sense that you were less somehow less caught in the anticipation just through the awareness of it?
Yeah, I was less caught in it. What it made me aware of is it's a habit I have unconsciously, not looked at before, not noticed, that I've created. So I've created the anticipation. And again, it's trying to control an outcome of what experience I'm wanting in whatever arises in the meditation. I've not seen that before.
Great. Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully you'll see it again and again and again, because it's one of those things, it will arise again and again and again, but the more it's seen, the more it's just seen as another piece of the jigsaw, piece of the picture. Here it is. Okay, it's not. It's something that can be known in awareness rather than something that sort of dictates how my response is to things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I had a different kind of experience, actually. A very visual experience. Quite a strong image, actually, which I wasn't expecting, and then it just sort of came, and it arrived. Strong image.
Okay, so was this while you had your eyes closed?
Yeah.
It was a mental image, yeah.
A pleasant one.
Okay.
Yeah, more so, I guess, like a metaphor, for me. So it was, positive experience, actually.
Okay, yeah. I think sometimes things arise, and like it sounds like this, and I think what we can also notice, particularly when they're pleasant, and there's a sense of, what I'm picking up is there's a sense of meaning in that, and to recognize that sense of meaning is there. So we're not necessarily looking to well, it's important that's known as well, if you like. That's also part of the picture, is that the mind is ascribing some meaning to it, and that is part of the picture. It's not denying that the sense of meaning, but it's saying this sense of meaning is also part of what's happening.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Okay. Yeah. Anyone else?
I could say something. Yeah, I had this sort of experience of sort of deep relaxation, and then it was almost like a feeling of sort of letting go of a mooring, but then with that came this sort of judder of kind of fear, which kind of sort of brought me back to kind of clinging. Because fear is too strong a word, but just a kind of like a feeling of something unfamiliar, of this sense of being untethered.
Untethered is a good word. It's a good word to describe that sense. Yeah. And I guess what we do quite a bit in practice is there's those moments of new territory, relaxing into new territory, and then the sort of a more familiar response to that, or tightening up to that. And I know that you will know this, but that sense of just allowing both those sides to be there. What's most helpful, I suppose, not to identify with either one, the sort of contraction or the sort of more expansive, but actually both things that we can recognize, we can know in awareness. Okay, let's do another little meditation, and this time, definitely. Well, I would say don't look at the screen, and have your eyes open this time. You may want to close them at some point, but we're going to work a little bit with another sense, a sense of sight, seeing, and so I work with a framework where we're looking to have continuity of awareness, to be aware in as many moments, and with this sort of bigger perspective, to try and join the dots, fill the jigsaw. So that's my model, and within this, seeing is really important, because there are so many potential moments where we can be aware when we're seeing, because we've almost always got our eyes open. When we're sleeping, obviously we don't, and often when we're meditating. So particularly if you usually have your eyes shut when you're meditating, it can be really helpful to just try it. Sometimes just try meditating, and then that means you've got another anchor. One of the people who spoke just now, I'm sorry I didn't see any names, talked about using hearing as an anchor, and it's a great anchor into present moment awareness.
Vajradevi, you've frozen for a little bit. Let's see if she comes back.
But seeing is also really helpful, because cooking, we're doing it a lot as a then we can miss it. God. Okay, am I back yet?
Not back. You're back, yeah.
Just tell me when I'm back. Oh, sorry?
Yeah, you're back now.
Not back yet.
You catch some of that, but maybe go over the last couple of sentences.
Okay. What were they? I have no idea. Okay, so I was saying with seeing that we're seeing when we're walking, we're seeing when we're cooking, we're seeing all these different activities where we could also be using seeing as an anchor for awareness. But it's quite hard to do that if we haven't practiced with it in formal meditation, in sitting meditation, because the habits around seeing are so strong. The habit to go to the sense object, just land there, and that's where the attention is. That's where the objects of delight and the objects of aversion are there. So the habit of seeing is just a really good sense faculty to be able to practice with. Hopefully I've repeated myself enough that you've got the general idea. So just don't look at the screen, keep your eyes open at least some of the time, or you can experiment with opening and shutting your eyes. We'll just have a few minutes doing this, because we haven't got that much time left. So as your eyes are open and landing on things, you might be aware of particular sense objects that the visual sight process is landing on. You might be aware of the floor, the carpet in the room that you're in. Might be aware of the window frame or what's beyond the window. So there can be particular objects, furniture, all sorts of things, the end of the process, these sense objects. So as with hearing and listening, we've also got seeing and looking. So often when we're what I'm calling the end of the process, the fish at the end of the line, we're looking. There's a desire to identify what's being seen. And with seeing, we look to relax the gaze a bit. There's less emphasis on what's being seen. So let the eyes be soft, even slightly blurred. So really relaxing the eyes. And I remember hearing once that relaxing the hands and the eyes they're the most difficult things to relax. But to whatever extent is possible, we just let the eyes be soft. And less focused. So often this will really increase our awareness of what's happening in our peripheral vision. And it can almost feel like you're seeing around corners. It's also helpful to let the gaze rest somewhere that feels comfortable and natural. And that will depend on you. For me, it's the gaze rests not too far away, not very far away, and quite low. So when we practice seeing, the emphasis is on the process within the body mind, or what's being looked at. And how we're seeing, knowing that seeing is happening. Very simple. And we will, of course, see things, see objects. But we can rest a little bit more attention on knowing the process of seeing. The mind is seeing, the mind is recognizing objects. So one way of perhaps helping to describe this is that seeing the objects of sight, it's a bit like we've got a pair of glasses on, a pair of specs on, and we're looking right through them. This is what we usually do. We look right through them to what's being seen, what's being looked at. But when we settle back in this way, settle back the body and relax the eyes, then actually you can notice this. If you are wearing glasses, you're more likely to notice that you're wearing glasses. The attention is a little bit more settled back. You're not looking through, but seeing the process, seeing the specs, the glasses as part of the picture. So just the same as before. If there's anybody, maybe just got time for at the most a couple of people, just anyone like to say anything about their experience, what they noticed, what you noticed, how it felt.
With having the eyes open, the solidity of experience increased, which I found a bit unpleasant.
The solidity?
Yeah, so with the hearing and the eyes are closed, in a sense, it's just sounds arising and passing. But with the eyes open, there's a sense of, like, I'm seeing a bottle there, I'm seeing some training shoes there. And suddenly the world's becoming a lot more solid again. And seeing like the little light on my computer and trying to work out, is that not annoying me? And kind of realizing there's a lot more assessment going on. And then if I soften my gaze to just looking at the carpet, I'm vaguely aware of the things on the periphery, the objects. But the inclination all the time as I soften the gaze is to close the eyes again. So I'm letting go of that solidifying tendency. So yeah, it's quite interesting.
Yeah. Good to notice the unpleasantness of it. If you can notice that, then, as I'm sure you know, you'd be less likely to be motivated to close your eyes because of that, to go towards a more pleasant experience. Unpleasant is just maybe part of that exploration in that moment. It takes a bit of getting used to, I think seeing, because it's such a dominant sense for all sighted people. It's so dominant. It's so much how we make sense of our world. But I think if we do it regularly, I think it can really change the relationship to substantial parts of our day, I think, through practicing with seeing. Maybe we'll just leave it, just have the one person speak for now, because we only got 3 or 4 minutes as far as I can tell. And I did ask you to bring something to taste, to something. I'm going to leave you to do that in your own time, in your own way, to explore tasting, and the maybe particularly look out for liking and not liking. It'll probably be liking and wanting, because you probably haven't chose something. If you've chosen anything at all, you probably haven't chose something that you don't like. So, but it could be very, very interesting. That process of really, just bringing more awareness to something that, again, we take completely for granted most of the time. So let's just finish just with 2 or 3 more minutes of sitting, and you can choose choose the emphasis, whether it's hearing or seeing, or putting the emphasis more completely with anchoring in the body. But perhaps wherever the emphasis is, see if it's possible to be aware of that quality of knowing, quality of the mind that's aware. a mind that's conscious of something or other, happening all the time. So really it's just a sense of accompanying that consciousness, that knowing. And appreciating the present moment, just enjoying the fact that it's possible to be aware, to know that you're aware. That's actually quite pleasant.
Thank you very much.
So we need to leave it here. Hour and a half goes very quickly. And yeah, it's been a pleasure spending time with you this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
And yeah, joining in with lots and lots of stuff there. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Vajradevi. I really enjoyed that. Very
Pleasure.
good. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's give Vajradevi some
Yeah.
loving hands. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vajradevi.
Thanks, Vajradevi. That was fun. Yeah, really fun.
Thank you very much. Lovely
Yeah.
to see you.
And what?
Bye, Vajradevi.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye, everyone. Hi,
Yeah.
Charan.
Yeah, great to see you.
Great to see you,
Bye.
Vajradevi. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.